Ever get that, like, kind of terrifying feeling, when you feel a pain in your chest and you're just sure it's your heart?
Oh, absolutely. That's a primal fear right there.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, using this story about a guy named Alberto to help us, well, unpack it all.
Yeah, I think this particular story is really interesting.
Our source material this time around, it's a narrative really focuses on doctor-patient communication, how crucial that is. And there are some, honestly, surprising takeaways about handling those health scares we all have.
You hit the nail on the head with surprising. What grabbed me about this story is how it's like universal. It's not just about one patient, one case. It's really a lesson in how doctors figure out the root cause of pain. They're not just trying to mask symptoms, which, let's be honest, we all want sometimes.
Right, just make it go away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this story digs into that and the importance of clear communication, not just for getting the right diagnosis, but for your own peace of mind, too.
Okay, so, Alberto. He goes to the doctor basically thinking he needs an ambulance, right? He's convinced it's his heart.
And that's where it gets interesting because the doctor doesn't immediately order a battery of tests.
Which, honestly, is probably for the best, right?
Right. And that's important, especially these days with hypochondria, people self-diagnosing online. Makes those fears spiral.
Tell me about it, the rabbit holes I've gone down. But back to Alberto, the story talks about this dilemma doctors face all the time, how much time they have versus what patients expect. It even gets into the ethics of, like, are all tests really necessary?
It's true. It's a constant balancing act for physicians. You don't want to dismiss anyone's concerns, but you also have to be mindful of not overdoing it with tests that might not be needed.
Which is where this story takes a turn for, well, the fascinating. The doctor, to explain things to Alberto, uses an analogy, and it's actually brilliant.
Yeah, the cat versus tiger analogy. It's so
Right.
simple, but it works.
Okay, so break it down. You're in the exam room, Alberto's freaking out, what happens?
So the doctor starts by asking Alberto to picture a house cat.
Okay, I think we can all do that.
Right. We all know what those look like. Small, fluffy, loves to nap, chases those little red dots. Easy peasy.
Even I could have made that diagnosis. Where does the tiger come in?
That's the genius part. The doctor then says, okay, but imagine this creature is actually over 3 feet tall, weighs more than a refrigerator, and prefers gazelles to kibble. Would you still be so sure it's just a house cat?
I don't think so. Sounds a little less Garfield and a lot more dangerous.
And that's the point. The doctor was showing how, just like certain features help us rule out a house cat, certain symptoms can help determine if chest pain is actually heart-related. Are those tiger signs there?
That's such a clever way to take something complicated, medical stuff, and make it make sense.
It totally works. And not only does it help people understand, but it also injects a little humor, right? You're taking a tense moment and suddenly you're thinking about cats and tigers. It breaks the ice.
It's like that saying, laughter is the best medicine. Maybe combined with a good analogy in this case. But seriously, it shows how important it is for doctors to explain things clearly.
100%. And it goes both ways, right? Patients have to feel comfortable speaking up, asking questions when they need something explained.
Totally. It's a partnership, not just a one-way street. So what about Alberto? Did this whole cat-tiger thing actually help him calm down?
It did. He was so relieved to find out he wasn't having a heart attack. He even joked about winning a prize for guessing the animal right. And, that actually brings up another important point. It's funny, right? Like sometimes the best news you can get at the doctor's office is that there's nothing major wrong.
It's so true. But I think it's easy to forget that when you're worried about your health. We go in expecting some big answer, some sort of diagnosis.
It's like we need that validation. We were right to be concerned. Give us the treatment plan, the prescription,
Exactly. But with Alberto, the win was that reassurance. It wasn't a heart attack. He was going to be fine.
Sometimes peace of mind really is the best medicine. And I think that's often overlooked. We focus so much on the tests, the treatments, that we forget the human side of medicine is just as important.
It's that human connection, right? Having a doctor you trust say, hey, you're okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that takes skill, too. It's not just about knowing the science. It's about knowing how to talk to people, how to calm their fears.
This whole story with Alberto, it really makes you think about how to be a good advocate for yourself in those situations. Where you're scared, you don't know what's wrong.
You're spot on. What advice would you give to our listeners on that front? How can we all become better healthcare advocates?
Well, based on Alberto's experience, I think it starts with being able to explain what you're feeling clearly and honestly to your doctor.
Absolutely. No sugarcoating, no downplaying.
Right. And at the same time, Being open to what the doctor has to say, asking questions if you need to, it's a two-way street.
It really is. You're on the same team, you and your doctor. You both want the same thing to get you healthy. Another thing I think is important for being a good healthcare advocate is, well, being informed.
Oh, definitely. We've got so much information at our fingertips these days, but you've got to be careful where you get it from.
Exactly. Not everything you read online is accurate or helpful. It's easy to go down those rabbit holes.
Oh, tell me about it. I've diagnosed myself with everything under the sun, thanks to the internet.
We've all been there. The key is to remember that while online resources can be helpful for general information, they should never replace talking to a real, live doctor.
It's about finding that balance, right? Being informed, but not letting fear control everything.
Exactly. Trust your gut, be proactive about your health, and never be afraid to speak up and ask questions.
And sometimes a little humor can go a long way too. Like that cat versus tiger analogy, it probably helped Alberto relax a bit, even if just for a second. It's true, a little laughter can really lighten the mood. And I think that's part of why that cat-tiger analogy is so effective. It's memorable.
Absolutely, it sticks with you, which is so important when you're trying to understand, medical stuff that can be kind of confusing.
Speaking of important takeaways, as we wrap up our deep dive here, what's I don't know, the one big thing you want listeners to walk away with from Alberto's story?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think if I had to pick just one, it'd be to remember that seeing a doctor, it's a two-way street, right? Like, it's our job as patients to be upfront and honest about what we're experiencing, but we also got to be ready to listen to our doctors, ask questions if something's not clear. It's a partnership, really.
It really is. And hopefully at the end of that conversation, you both, doctor and patient, end up reassured.
Exactly. Sometimes no news is the best news.
Couldn't agree more. Well, folks, that about wraps up another deep dive for us. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of, well, cats, tigers, and the importance of clear communication when it comes to our health. Until next time, stay curious.